It was a very interesting, life-changing experience for me. It broadened my horizons and taught me everything I did not know about the Israeli society, especially as an 18-year-old girl who thought she knows everything. After doing that, I served in the IDF for 2 years, the army in Israel. I was an instructor for combatant training at a special unit of the intelligence force. I got out of my army service on March of 2020 and arrived here in Chattanooga about 6 months later, right during COVID. I've been here for a little over a year now, and I loved every minute of it so far. Today I'm a community shlicha, Israeli cultural emissary, as Sivan said, for the Jewish Federation of Greater Chattanooga. And that's briefly about me. That's our agenda for today. I'm gonna start with showing my film, and then we're gonna talk about a few dots that I thought would be interesting to talk about. So then, not furthermore, I'm just gonna start screening our film.
אין יום שאני לא חושבת על זה באמת, כי זה קשה, זה מפחיד אותי, כי דבר ראשון יש את האנשים שמרימים גבה ולא יודעים איך לאכול את זה, ויש את האנשים שזה מסקרן אותם אולי, או שהם יודעים איך להגיב לזה או שלא, זה תלוי באיש. כשאת באה לפגוש בן אדם, הדבר הראשון שאת שואלת אותו, איך קוראים לך ומאיפה אתה? והמאיפה אתה הזה, אצלי זה לא מאיפה אתה רגיל, זה מאיפה אתה של... אוקיי, את מזרזיר. נחמד, למה, מה יש לך לחפש שם? אני גרה בזרזיר, אמא יהודיה ואבא בדואי. תמיד המזריב הזה היה עושה לי כזה... לא, הייתי נרתעת ממנו, לא יודעת למה. נולדתי בסוללים, ואז אחרי כמה חודשים עברנו לתמרת, ושם בעצם גדלתי עד כיתה ב', ובכיתה ב' עברנו לזרזיר. עד היום אני יודעת ערבית, ואני ויעל לומדות בנהלל, ונועם ועמית לומדים בכפר. לעבור לזרזיר זה היה פתאום כזה, מה זרזיר עכשיו? אף פעם לא הרגשתי קשורה עד היום בעצם, זה תמיד היה משהו מאוד רחוק, כאילו שם סבא וסבתא ובאים לבקר אותם, ופתאום לעבור לגור שם בלי חברים, בלי כאילו מקומות לצאת אליהם. אני לא קולטת שזאת המציאות שלי לפעמים, כאילו. אני לא מאמינה ששם אני גרה, כי אני כאילו מרגישה אני לא מרגישה שזה שלי.
הדרך היחידה לשמור על התא המשפחתי הזה, ואבא יודע, כי אני אמרתי לו את זה, לשמור על התא המשפחתי הזה פחות או יותר במצב שהוא יהיה מסוגל לנהל חיים נורמליים, היה לחזור לכפר. כי מחוץ לכפר, אבא שלך הוא כמו דג מחוץ למים. וראש המשפחה, אני חושבת שראש המשפחה, גם כי גדלתי ככה וגם כי אבא בא מתרבות כזאת, ברגע שראש המשפחה מאבד את הכוח שלו, המשפחה מתפרקת. זאת אומרת, כדי שאבא שלך ואני נהיה מסוגלים לנהל חיים נורמליים, כזוג נשוי, כבעל ואישה, כראש משפחה עם אימא במשפחה, כן היינו צריכים לחזור לכאן. הוא היה צריך להחזיר לעצמו את הביטחון שלו ביכולת שלו לגדל ילדים, גם בסביבה וגם דרך אגב, גם פה, הוא גם נלחם בקטנה. כי להסביר לאנשים למה הבת שלך חוזרת בגרמיון ובגד בלט לכיכר ב-10 בלילה, כן, צריך להסביר את זה. אבל כאן יותר קל לנהל את המלחמה הזאת. בחוץ, או לגור בין היהודים, היה לא הרבה יותר קשה, ואני חושבת שברגע שלא טוב, אז גם לי לא טוב, ואז גם לכם לא טוב.
אין מה לעשות, זה החיים, לא הכל ורוד. לא הכל ורוד, ולא תמיד הדשא של השכן יותר ירוק, לא.
אני חושבת שיהיה לך יותר קל.
אני כבר יש לי עוד מחוספס.
לי?
ספגתי המון, גם אימא. כל אחד בעולם שלו מתמודד איכשהו בחיים האלה. לא תמיד פשוט, אין מה לעשות. אנחנו נמצאים במדינת ישראל ולא נמצאים בהולולולו. השנייה, אני התראיינתי את זה בעולם, אני דיברת את זה לכל העולם.
בסדר, אנחנו מאוד מעריכים את זה.
מדינת ישראל.
ספציפית עליי ועל אבא זה קשר שהוא... קשה לנו להבין אחד את השני. קשה. היו הרבה פעמים שלא הבנתי אותו, הוא לא הבין אותי, היה מלא התנגשויות, מלא זה. הוא תמיד לא הבין למה אני לא גאה במי שאני ולמה אני לא אוהבת את הכפר, ותמיד היה לו מעצבן שאני לא מנסה גם להתחבר. מה זה לא מנסה? מה, אתה חושב שזה כזה פשוט? זה ממש לא פשוט. אבל אני חושבת שחבל לו שאני לא חווה את זה ולא מתחברת. למרות שהוא אף פעם לא עשה משהו כדי שזה ישתנה.
לא הייתה לך אופציה ללמוד ערבית. להגיד לך שאני אשלם עם זה? לא. אני מרגיש עם זה שאני כאן, פישלתי לגבייך ולגבי יעל אחות שלך בשפה הערבית.
אתה יודע שאני לא בדיוק אוהבת, זה לא בדיוק המקום שאני חושקת לגור בו. עצם העובדה שכל החברה, כל המציאות שלי, הכל מחוץ לכפר. אין לי כאן חברים לצאת אליהם או אנשים להיפגש איתם, וכל פעם שאני רוצה לצאת אני חייבת להיות תלויה בכם. זה מציק לך?
לא, זה לא אשמתי.
כאילו אתה אומר אם את לא רוצה אז לא צריך, אבל כאילו...
כי אני לא מכפה עלייך. את יכולה להיות הכי שקופה והכי פתוחה, ותתחברי למי שאת רוצה. אני אכבד את זה. לא דרשתי ממך להתלבש לפי המסורת הבדואית, ולא דרשתי שתלכי למסגד, ולא דרשתי שתלכי ללמוד בכפר, ולשים מטפחת על הראש. את ליברלית כמוני כמוך. זה שהחלטנו שיהיה לנו בית בכפר, כי אני מאוד רציתי לגור בתמרת, אבל לא הייתה אופציה. גם לא יקבלו אותי במקום אחר, בגלל מאיפה שאני בא. כי אנשים עדיין לא, אין להם את ה...
זה בורות כזאת.
כן, אין מה לעשות. לא צריך להתעלם. זה המציאות. תאמיני, לגור בכפר זה זכות גדולה. כי יש אנשים טובים בכפר.
לא כל בעיה שיש לך בחיים נובעת מזה שאימא שלך יהודייה שהתחתנה עם בדואית. זאת אומרת, יש גם בעיות בחיים שנובעות מזה שאת מעיין והוא קייס, ואתם שני טיפוסים ושני, מבינה?
זה מה שאני אומרת.
ואתם תמיד תתעסקו במקביל בשני סוגים של בעיות.
אבל למשל
אחד שנובעות מזה שאתם אבא ובת, שאת בת 17 והוא בן 45, ואחד שנובע מזה שאת ילדה מעורבת והוא בדואי.
בשיחה איתו הוא כל הזמן הצדיק כמה זה לא משנה, כמה הוא מאמין בדו-קיום, כמה הוא מאמין שכל מה שאני אבחר יהיה בסדר, כמה שלא אכפת לו לאיזה צד אני הולכת ולאן אני נוטה.
ולמרות הכל...
והוא כל הזמן מצדיק את עצמו, כל הזמן.
לא, ולמרות הכל, עדיין מאוד 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 חשוב לו שאת כן תהיי...
גאה במי שאני, בסדר.
גאה במי שאת, גאה במקום שאת באה ממנו, וגאה בתרבות ובחינוך שהוא הנחיל לך. וזה בסדר.
היו לי הרבה הערות גזעניות, כאילו אני גם עדיין נתקלת בהן. אני לא אשכח את התגובה של איזה ילד מהשכבה מעל. גרתי בתמרת, זה היה כזה השבוע הראשון ללימודים, ועלינו לאוטובוס, ואיך שעליתי כזה היה איזה טאקל איתו, ילדה בכיתה א', לא יודעת מה היא רוצה, מה היא עושה כאן, ואז כזה הוא אמר לי כזה, יאללה, יא דרוזית, רדי מהאוטובוס. וזו הפעם הראשונה כזה שאני אף פעם לא אשכח, זה ממש כזה חרוט לי בראש. אני חושבת שגם זה בגלל שלא הבנתי מה זה ההערה הזאת ואיך היא קשורה למצב שהיה, וגם נראה לי זה הפעם הראשונה שפתאום קלטתי שזה מפריע לאנשים. נמאס לי כבר שהמצב הוא ככה, באמת שהייתי מאוד שמחה לשנות אותו. אני לא מבינה למה המצב הזה לא יכול להיות נורמלי, למה זה חייב להיות כל כך מסובך, למה אנשים לא יכולים לקבל את זה כמו שזה ושזה יעבור לסדר היום ויהיה רגיל. למה אני כל הזמן צריכה להרגיש לא בסדר ולא מספיק טובה, או כל הזמן צריכה לפחד מזה, או כל הזמן צריכה לחשוב שישפטו אותי ככה ויחשבו אותי ככה. זה נמאס, זה מתסכל, אי אפשר כבר לחשוב ככה יותר מדי, המוח שלך כל הזמן עובד, והלוואי והייתי יכולה להרגיש ילדה רגילה כמו פינוקיו, באמת. אני לא שייכת לא לכאן ולא לכאן, לא משנה עד כמה אני אנסה. אני תמיד ארגיש שאני מעמידה פנים או כמעט שם, אבל לא באמת שם. הקשר הכי חזק שלי זה עם נועם. הוא פשוט אני בקטן. יש לנו אותו ראש, אותה חשיבה, גם אומרים לנו שאנחנו ממש דומים. אני יכולה לשאול אותך משהו? מה אתה יותר אוהב, ערבית או עברית? את השפה שאנחנו מדברים בבית, את השפה בבית ספר?
בבית.
בבית? את העברית? למה?
זה יותר כיף להגיד את זה.
כן, יותר קל לך?
כן.
אבל עם כל החברים שלך אתה מדבר ערבית.
אבל זה לא קל לי.
למה לא קל לך?
אני לא הייתי קצת בזה, אבל
קשה לך עם שתי השפות?
קשה לי בשפה של אבא.
בערבית קשה לך?
כן.
מה קשה לך להגיד?
אני נולדתי ערבי, אבל עברית. אני מדבר גם בשפה של אבא, אבל זה קשה לי.
באמת?
נו, תגידי כבר.
אבל אני לא יודעת לדבר ערבית, כמוך.
איפה את נולדת?
אני לא נולדתי, אתה רואה את היישוב שם?
כן?
תמרת? אני נולדתי שם.
אני נולדתי שם.
רוצה בלי חיבוק?
לא רוצה.
טוב. כל החיים שלי הייתי צריכה להצדיק את עצמי. כל הזמן, מאיפה שאני גרה, מה אני עושה, מה אני אוהבת, למה זה ככה. אני מאוד מקווה שאני אוכל להתגבר על זה. אני גם חושבת שאני אצליח בסופו של דבר, כי די, מה? כמה אפשר להתעסק בשטויות, כאילו... בסדר, כל הילדות התביישת בזה, אבל אין מה לעשות, את לא יכולה להכחיש מאיפה את באה, וגם יכול להיות שאת לא צריכה להכחיש. מלא אנשים אמרו לי, זו שליחות בעיניי. זו שליחות בעיניי מי שאת ואיך שאת מציגה את עצמך, ואמרתי כי תכלס אין לי ברירה אחרת.
Thank you for watching. So first I wanted to talk about our work process. We were a team of 3 girls, 3 teenagers. We knew that we wanted our film to talk about a strong woman character. But we changed 3 stories during the process, our work process. First, we wanted to talk about a girl named Shira, who left her very religious Haredi family and home. But we started working with her and she changed her mind. She didn't want to participate. After that, we we started working with our friend Liora, who went to school with us, and she was born to a unique community in Israel called the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. And after explaining a little longer what it means and what we wanted to do with her and her family, she felt like it was too much, and she also didn't want to do that. And only then we convinced Mayan to agree to participate. That's who we wanted from first place, but it was a hard decision for her to choose to be exposed that way. So eventually it took longer for us to find the right story that we wanted to talk about rather than making the film. We just ran out of time. And we ended up having 3 shooting days, hours of interviews and conversations that we needed to edit and cut. My part was the editing part. The editing room at school has become our home. We didn't share it with other groups like everyone else did, because we were literally over there. As you can see over here, we had a sign saying that here live happily Rotem, Yuval, and Inbal. We had notes all over the walls. This is just one wall. There are 2 more walls just like that, and a window wall. It was covered with notes that were telling parts of the stories and conversations that we were having. And as the notes were changing over the walls, that's how the storyline of the film was changing. Eventually, we were done on time. And a few months after we graduated, came the Haifa Film Festival. Our teachers asked us for permission. We didn't really know what it meant, but they sent it to the festival. And we were invited, like everyone else, to come and enjoy the festival itself. And out of 106 other movies that were sent by other teenagers that made it for school, we won the first place of the young film competition. And it was a very exciting event. All of us came from our army or gap year. Mayan is a year younger than us, so she came from school. And they even wrote about it in the national newspaper. Here you can see our teacher, Liron. That's Mayan that you know from the movie. That is me. Yuval is the photographer over here. Rotem is the director of the movie, and Iftach is one of our other teachers. That was very exciting and unique. So one of the main issues we wanted the film to talk about is Mayan's identity questions. Like almost every other 17-year-old teenager, she's just trying to figure out who she is. I'm sure all of us here went through a phase like that in one or other way. But here in the story of Mayan, she also has the cultural question combined with it due to the way she grows up and the differences within her own home. That was one of the main things we wanted the movie to talk about. I hope you could see it. I think the main part you can see it is with her last conversation in the movie with her brother, when she points that she was born there. She was born outside of where they're sitting in a place called Timrat, which is a Jewish settlement, a Jewish community, and how he points that he was born there. He points to the Zarzir, the Arab village, Bedouin village, that he feels he belongs to. And it's her family, that's her younger brother, who she feels like she's most similar to. Since the film, Mayan graduated from high school as an outstanding dancer. here is a picture of her dance. It's not her own dance, but she's an extraordinary dancer. And one of her projects, like I needed to make a movie for communications and media class, she had to form a dance. So the music and the name of the dance was Eli Hudia, just like our movie called. That's where we took the name from. And the sound of the music that went with this dance that she built was a combination of the muezzin, like we heard in the last part of the movie. It's the song that you can hear all around the Arab villages around us when they're praying, the prayer song, and it was combined with songs from the synagogue, the Jewish prayer songs. So it was really, really interesting. After she graduated from high school, she finished a year of service, community service gap year, just like I did. There's something very similar to that in a youth village in the south part of Israel. And she recently finished full service of her army service in the IDF, one of the best elite units. I don't know what's expecting her next. To be honest, we were very close friends at high school, but as life goes, we're not that close anymore. So that is Mayan. Another subject I feel like it's important to talk about, especially because we are here in the States, in small Jewish communities in the States, is intermarriage in Israel, because you'd expect that most Israelis, Jewish Israelis, would marry Jewish Israelis. But actually, intermarriage between Jews and non-Jews in Israel has become more and more common in the last 2 decades, mostly following the immigration of the 1990s from CIS, former Soviet Union, and immigrants from Ethiopia. It becomes more and more common, and I find it very interesting. Just like Kais and Mayan's mom, there are a lot of people, both in our area and all over the country, that are married out of love, and it doesn't have to mean they're both Jewish. And I think it's something that is important to know about Israel. That's about that. And the last thing I think it's important to know looking at this video is our unique area in Israel. So in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a project called Fidelization of the Galilee. The project has created a unique demographic in our area. We're talking, you'll see it in a map in a second. It's the north part of Israel between Haifa and Afula. While Jews and Arabs does not live in the same villages, we live in good neighborhood and good relations. When things are tension between Jews and Arabs in Israel, things are also tension in our area. And what I'm talking about is, you can see here in the map that there are Jewish and Arab villages all around one another, but not touching, not together. So for example, here in the yellow circle, that's Alon Galil, that's where I grew up. Here with the red arrow is Zarzir, that's where the film takes place. That's a Bedouin Arab village. I was driving through Bet Zarzir every day, twice a day for 12 years to school. Once when I went to school in Givat Ela, which is a Jewish village. And for 6 years, I was driving through there to Nahalal, which is where my high school is, and that was and is as well a Jewish village. But all combined together, for example, Manshia Zabda is the village over here, is half Bedouin and half Falahi. Falach is a former farmer or agricultural laborer. Bir el-Maksur, that's pointed over here, is a Bedouin village that, since I can remember myself, people from Bir el-Maksur was working in a very important positions within the community that I grew up in Alona Galil. And it goes on and on. This entire area is built like that, and the idea of the Judaization of the Galilee was to, in one way, stop the Arab villages to extend. With the way the culture works is that when the sons grow up, the parents would build a house for each son around the parents' house, and they would extend their village more and more. And the government in Israel wanted to be able to have Jewish people live all over the area, so they chose hills and specific areas to put Jewish villages, so the Arab villages won't be able to extend all over the place. Along with that, you can see places like Tzipori, like I'm pointing over here, which is a very ancient village where Jewish people lived throughout thousands of years now. So that was always there, and that was also always Jewish people were always living there. As well as you can see Nazareth over here, which is also an ancient place that has been lived by Christians for the past, again, I don't know how long, but very long time. So that was briefly the subjects that I feel the film was talking about. And now I want to open it to an open conversation and a discussion and clarifications, everything you have to ask or comment about everything I was just talking about. That's our time for that. Thank you so much for listening.
Inbal. You open the mic. Inbal.
Yeah.
So first of all, I want to thank you. It was amazing. Thank you so much. So if you want to, and you have some questions, because this film does bring some questions, feel free to unmute yourself and just ask the question. And can I start with my question? You said that the intermarriage in Israel rise in the past decade. And the reason was, just for the clarification, you said it's also from the immigration, the aliyah from the former Soviet Union and the Ethiopian immigrant. Can you explain why and what is the question we are dealing with in Israel about this subject?
Yeah, so, and I would love to get your help with it as well, Sivan, but the people that came, a lot of the people that came from Ethiopia and former Soviet Union, not always counts as Jews, talking when Israel tries to define them as Jews, because most of the time the people who get to define who's Jewish are the more Orthodox people, and they take the stronger the stronger way for that. Which means if years and years ago the family was Jewish and it was hard being as living as Jewish life in former Soviet Union, then a lot of people had to hide it, for example. So they live less as Jewish per se, and they lost a lot of the costumes. But they're still Jewish. They still define themselves as Jews. They still wanted to come to Israel. There's a reason for them being there. But some people might say they're not Jews because they didn't have priests, or their mom might not be Jewish, and there are a lot of reasons for that. But some people might not say they're Jews, so it means in Israel they can't marry as Jews. So that's a big part of it. It's almost the same story when talking about people that came from Ethiopia. There's an argument between different people in Israel whether they're Jews or not as well, or how much they're Jews, if I can say that, which personally I disagree, but there are a lot of different opinions. So I hope that answers the question, Sivan.
Yes,
Do you
indeed.
have something to add to it?
And actually, David sent us a question through the chat. He said, he asked how the title of Ali Odia, and how did you choose that, basically?
So I was just telling one of the last parts of how Mayan is a great dancer, and she picked that name for her own dance that she needed to build for school. And it's a combination of Hebrew and Arabic. El in Arabic is like ha in Hebrew. It's like the in English. And the Yehudia means Jewish, a Jewish woman or girl in Hebrew, in Arabic. So El Yehudia means the Jewish, or the Jewish girl in our translation to English. So that's where the name came from. It was actually Mayan's name, and we adopted it.
Which is a great choice. And we have a question from Mark.
Yeah, whenever I hear about interfaith marriages, or I always hear about the Arabs and the Israelis, and it dawned on me, I never hear any conversation about Christians who live there. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Sorry?
What are there many Christians there, and is there the same type of issues with Christians and Israelis, or Christians and Arabs, or is the population so small it doesn't make any difference?
So the Christian society in Israel is not as big as Jewish and Muslim in Israel. It's a smaller minority. So honestly, I'm not sure how much it is. Personally, I don't think I know a lot of couples that are interfaith marriage between Christians and Jews. I do know that there's been it's been on the news a lot in recent years. There are so many different couples, 2 guys, 2 women, all kinds of marriages, all combined with all 3 religions. In Israel, there are a lot of other minorities. I can say that I do know that Druze in Israel is even a smaller minority. And for Druze, in order to be Druze, unlike Judaism, you can't convert into the Druze community, the Druze culture. You have to be born as Druze. So the interfaith marriage between them and other communities it happens less, because within the community they maintain to keep it more within the community, which also makes a lot of problems because the community is not as big. So it means that they have more marriages between family members, which we all know it's not the best thing for everyone. So yeah, it happens with all the communities today. The numbers are way smaller than they are here in the States, but the numbers of the people in Israel is way smaller than it is here in the States. So it goes together, I think.
And I think as a continuation to your question, the Jewish population and also the Christian and Muslim and Jews, especially the Jews, are a very close community that doesn't really, and they're still very protective of the girls in their community. So you don't going to see girls from the Jews going out after like a certain hour. And it needs to be with like the permission of a father. So they're very keeping to themselves. But I can tell you that like the question of intermarriage is something that is an issue also for Muslim and Christians in Israel. Obviously, it depends how much religion you are, but like it's still an issue that they also doesn't really like the intermarriage happening in their religions as well. Yeah. Any more questions? Yes. So Miriam said, no, then it was, okay, if like intermarriage in Israel is more acceptable now than it was in the past.
So the movie, as I said, we had hours of conversations. We had to cut and edit into 12 minutes. The maximum was 15, but we figured no one wants to watch a 15 minutes film. So we had like 3 different endings, and at the end we had like 2 different versions, and we chose that one. The other one had a little more about Mayan's parents getting together. And I gotta tell you, I think it's a beautiful story. That I'm a little sorry that we don't have it in the film, but I can tell you now that he was working at the kibbutz, and she was coming from the army for vacations, and she would meet him just down the road. And they started dating, and they fell in love. And when he told about it to his family, they basically kicked him out of the house for dating a Jewish woman. And he slept in the car for about a month until they came around and they took him back home. On her side of the story, her father was a really big commander in the IDF, and he served for a while in the army in Israel. And so it wasn't obvious at all what would be his reaction for his daughter dating a Bedouin man. And her parents, for her surprise, accepted it very well. So for them, it was a huge deal. It was at first very bad, but they managed to figure it out. And you can see how her mom talks about it during the movie, especially when Mayan asks her, "Why did you do it to me? Why do we live in a Bedouin village?" I think I got the feeling, I want to say that in the past few years, it's more accepted in Israel, but I don't think there is a line to it. There is an idea that everyone would go with. I think it's very personal. It very depends on the family. It very depends on specific people. Like even in my family, it's been always in the conversation. Like how would my dad react if I would bring one kind of guy, and how would my mom react to the same guy? And it would be till opposite reaction. I do know to say that in my family, I'm very lucky, and whatever I'll choose, my parents would stand behind me, but that's not everyone. So I want to say I hope it's more accepted, but I can't tell it for sure. I don't know the right answer to this question.
I can add that, like, even though maybe, I don't know if intermarriage, as Inbal said, it's very dependent on your family, and there's family that are very important for them, like that, you know, you keep your culture and you marry someone from your religion, whether it be a Jewish person or Christian. But I can say that, like in previous years, we have increase in marriages in Israel that doesn't include religion institute. Like, for example, for the Jewish people, and not a lot of people as in the past marrying in the Rabbanut, which is the rabbinical institute in Israel. And I don't know what is the percentage in the Christian, but less people are married in church. We also know that, like, a Catholic marriage is much more difficult to separate, or like there is much more laws. So there is an increase in marrying, getting married basically without any religion institute being involved in the process of marriage. A question, guys?
I came in late. Was this an intermarriage between a Muslim and a Jew? And I was wondering how they handle, are all the kids raised Jewish?
So in that, it's actually an interesting question. How that they raise the kids as like with Jewish values. It's something that we learn only in America, the Jewish values, we don't have it in Israel. And or like as like me said, they're going to the mosque, the synagogue. It's very interesting.
So it's interesting because it really depends who's like whose side is what. Specifically in this story, the mom is Jewish and the dad is Arab. So for both religions, the kids count for both. Like we know that for Jewish people, it depends on the mom. If the mom's Jewish, the kids are Jewish. That's the story with Mayan and her siblings, as well as from her dad's side for the Bedouin people, for Muslim, if the father is Muslim, then the kids are Muslim. So they're both. And with Mayan family, with the story that we just were talking about, it's an interesting combination because it's secular Jewish culture. So it is they are Jews. It's hard to understand it. It's hard for me to really keep up with that. I wish I would know to ask these questions 6 years ago when we made the movie, because I didn't know as much as I know now about this world. But I think they kind of mixed it together. I don't think Mayan has ever really went to the mosque to pray. Either I don't think she went to the synagogue as much. So it's not really in both. It's a good question that I should text her and ask her, for example, if her younger brothers are gonna have bar mitzvah. I don't know if they're gonna have a bar mitzvah or not, because the way they grew up is that Mayan has a sister that's closer by age. Yael, she talks about her at the beginning of the movie. They were both grew up going to a Jewish day school, and they went to the Jewish educational system all throughout graduation from high school. But the younger brothers, at the time that we filmed the movie, they went to the Arab education in the village. They went to preschool over there, And I know at the time that the parents' plan was to keep them at school until like 5th, 6th grade with the Bedouin educational system that they have at the village, but then send them to high school like the older kids with the Jewish education, the same high school that I went to. That is it's a large high school. We have a boarding school. We had a lot of cultures within the school. That was the plan back then. I don't know. I need to go check about a bar mitzvah. That's a really good question. And that I think that would answer a lot of it.
I was going to just ask if there's much tension or conflict when they see some of the negative things written about Jews in the Quran.
I don't really know.
They don't deal with that, or?
You missed the movie, but I will explain and I will give you a recap, but just a second. Gary, first of all, Miriam asked a question and then Gary raised an hand. Miriam, to answer your question about the intermarriage in Israel. So yeah, religious institute doesn't going to marry between mixed religion. So they can get married in Israel through a lawyer. Most of them go to Cyprus or Greece to get married and get the certificate of marriage. So yes, and Gary.
But also,
yeah.
Adding to Miriam's question, also within the Jewish community, a lot of people choose not to marry through the Rabbinical Institute. A year ago, my sister wanted to get married, and her original plan was not getting married through the Rabbinical Institute, but just having like a citizen, citizen married wedding, and she was planning to go to Greece and sign the papers in Greece and do the process like that. She ended up changing her mind because it was COVID and things were crazy, and she kind of wanted to get it over with and get married. So she did get married through the Rabbinical Institute. It wasn't her original plan. It is a big deal, and I do know to tell you that with the new government, they're starting to talk about changing and adding more rules to it, but we'll let the time come and see if and what's going to change. Yes, Gary.
Yeah.
Hi, as a filmmaker and somebody who spent a reasonable amount of time in Israel in the past 15 years, I would be really interested in seeing the film. I came to this late. Is there a link that I could click to see it?
Yeah, I would send a link to watch it on YouTube.
That would be great. I really look forward to seeing it.
Of course,
It's a good topic.
Right now. Thank you so much.
Guys, any more questions? Yeah.
What's that?
You have a question?
Oh, I don't want to bother.
You're not.
No, I was just curious if that was, I didn't hear, did she not want to answer that question about the
She
Quran?
doesn't know if like Mayan feel, or like your question is like, how did they feel about the conflict?
Yeah, well, when they see like their intermarriage, and then they see in the Quran itself, there are some couple of, especially in the 5th surah, there are some negative comments about Jews, and I would think that could cause a little bit of a problem.
I think it's very important to emphasize that my own mother is, she comes from a kibbutz, and people in the kibbutz are not, especially the classic kibbutz. Yes, we have a kibbutzim for religious people, but the classic kibbutznik is not, they are not religious at all. Most of the kibbutzim also doesn't have even synagogue. So they are more in the cultural aspect, and it's something we can talk about, like the movement of kibbutzim are a socialist, doesn't really believe more in work than like in God. So it's more as a cultural thing. So I think it's made it more, I don't know, it's still difficult even for secular people to accept people from different religion marrying their daughter or their son, but still much more acceptable or easy to swallow that the fact that our partner is not Jewish. Again, because they are not practicing Orthodox or any kind, even conservative or Reform Judaism. So I don't think her husband as well is very religious. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like the father of Mayan.
Excuse me?
Is the father of Mayan is a religious person?
Not really. I think he's more religious than her mom with Judaism, but I don't, as much as I can remember, he's not going to the mosque himself every week, but his family is more religious than her mom family. I think that's why his family was so angry even about it about their relationship at the beginning. It was harder for them. Yeah.
And the link is now in the chat if people
Yeah.
haven't seen that.
So the link, and I'll share the link in the chat. And if you guys have any more questions, feel free. Yes, Christine.
Yes, I just want to say that this is the second time I saw it. And it's really worth watching again. I picked up a lot more things through the photography, picked up some things in the dialogue that I didn't get the first time. And I thought we were pretty thorough, but obviously we weren't. So it would be good for everybody to go watch again the fine work that the girls did together on this film. That's it.
Thank you so much, Christine. Thanks for joining today. I see a lot of names and faces from Chattanooga. I was not expecting that, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Inbal, so I want to thank you again so much. It was very interesting. You got a lot of compliments. And I know some people are also from Israel that are joining us to this Zoom. And thank you so much. It was great. The Zoom is in the link. And yeah, Inbal, thank you so much. And thank you for all of you who participate.
Thank you so much. Have a great week.
You too. Yeah.